The infinite layers of the abyss. A chaotic evil plane with uncountable layers of infinite variety connected haphazardly. A violent, malevolent place where the strong survive on the backs of the weak conspire to overthrow the strong, alliances only last while convenient, and the landscape itself tortures the mind and body of all who dare to pass. First, let's discuss the origin of the Abyss, how it came to be and its history. Now, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th edition don't have an origin story for the Abyss. It's just assumed to have always been there, or at least been there as long as the Outer Planes have existed. 4th edition does, though. Now, if you want all the details to this version of the story, you can check out the 4th edition book, The Demonomicon, pages 7 through 9. I'm just going to cover the first part that explains how the Abyss came to be. Obviously, this story does contradict lore from other editions, but it's kinda cool and can be great for inspiration. So, the story goes like this. In an entirely different reality, not like another plane or another planet, but an entire multiverse separated from the one we know, there was a race of vile entities completely alien to us called the Oberiths. These beings of evil incarnate had ruled their dimension since time immemorial, but their hunger was draining their realm of all life and power. They knew their days were numbered and developed a plan. They opened a rift to a new realm and shoved a shard of uttermost evil through it. They hoped that the most powerful beings of that world would be corrupted by it, and they would be able to bend them to their will and conquer this new dimension. Eons passed and the Oberith races dwindled to only a few left before this plan came to fruition. A god named Tharizdun found and seized the Shard of Evil. This opened his spirit and mind to the Oberiths, who corrupted him in an instant, driving Tharizdun to madness. They told him to plant the shard in the astral sea, and that it would give him total dominion of that realm. Even in his madness, Tharizdun knew that his fellow gods would turn on him before he could ever seize that power. So instead, the mad god traveled to the furthest reaches of the cosmos, planting the seed of evil in a primordial expanse of the churning elemental chaos, in the realm of the fallen primordials, which he hoped to seize as his own. This nascent evil of the Oberith's realm flared one last time as black flame, exploding through a yawning vortex that formed where the seed was cast down. Forced to act even though their plans had gone astray, the Oberiths allowed themselves to be drawn through the vortex as their own realm was consumed and finally destroyed. The vortex that formed around the Shard of Evil was the Abyss, growing within the elemental chaos. Tharizdun was shielded from the Oberith's wrath by the link they had forged with him, and the evil and madness of the Shard blessed Tharizdun with great power of his own. Tharizdun and the Oberiths battled for rulership over the Abyss for eons. As the Shard of Evil fell deeper and deeper, Tharizdun tore through the stuff of the nascent Abyss, following the Shard of Evil and calling forth minions from its burgeoning substance to help him fight the Oberiths. These were the first demons. Tharizdun was insanely powerful thanks to the Shard, and only by the combined efforts of the last 12 Oberiths were they able to stalemate, forcing both sides to withdraw and plot the other's destruction. The Shard called for one powerful enough to claim it, and the Primordials entered the Abyss. They found the heart floating in a great red ocean called the Blood Sea. The Primordial Demogorgon stepped up first, then the Primordial Dagon stepped up and challenged Demogorgon. As the two fought, the Oberith Obox Ob claimed the Shard and became the first Prince of Demons. Obox Ob was compelled to bring the Shard to the Astral Sea, but Orcus, Demogorgon, and Baphomet feared rightly that this would grant him control over all the cosmos, so they banded together to fight him. They flung Obox Ob into the vortex beneath which the Abyss had formed, and where he struck, it sundered, forming a rift that drained the Blood Sea. The Primordials, who had fully transformed into Demon Lords now, followed down this rift in search of the Shard of Evil. However, the whispers were silenced, and the further down they went, the weaker they became. Afraid, they retreated except for the primordial Garash, who continued down the Abyss in search of the Shard. He has never been seen since. New layers would form over time, and Demon Lords would establish their domains over them. Eventually, Tharizdun makes an alliance with other primordials who are going to help him defeat the gods, and then Oberith, by the name of Queen of Chaos, sort of unites the Oberith and the demons, putting the demon lord Miska the Wolf Spider in charge of the demons, granting him the title Prince of Demons, and then some gods of law fight them, they imprison Tharizdun, they imprison Miska the Wolf Spider, a bunch of stuff happens, Demigor becomes the Prince of Demons, blah blah blah. But that's all extra stuff that isn't really related to the foundation of the Abyss, and like I said, if you want to check it out, you can check out Demonomicon. Now, this obviously contradicts the other editions, because it said that the Abyss is formed in the elemental chaos, whereas in every other edition, it is an outer plane, completely unrelated to the elemental planes. But it's a fun story. Now let's move on to the description of the Abyss. First edition says that the Abyss combines all that is evil with all that is chaotic to produce an ugly, violent plane where the strong survive only on the backs of the weak. It is the birthing place of the demonic race, and is called Demon Home by the natives of Gladsheim, and it's called Jurgarten, which translates to Misshapen Lands, by those of Arvandor. Second edition says that the Abyss is a nightmare where everything rots and nothing pure can survive. Only a Barmy or a Bleaker would go there more than once, and when you do go, make sure it is a short trip. Some layers steal memories, others rot bodies from within, some slowly freeze all living things into stone. Those are the good layers. On the bad layers, the water's poisonous, the sunlight burns, or the air is pure smoke. Fires, lightning, and poison don't bother the tanar'ri, so some of the layers that they inhabit aren't what anyone else would call tolerable. Still, the dark of it's that most layers of the Abyss are desolate but not unlivable, at least not for bloods with priestly and wizardly magic at their disposal. Trouble is, eventually a Burke's bound to walk through the wrong gate and wind up on a layer she can't survive. A trip to an unknown layer is a quick way to wind up in the dead book. The Abyss is a place where every impulse is laid bare. If you can imagine something awful or grotesque, you'll find it there. It's a place of evil in all its permutations, with the only law being that there is no law, except for the law that's imposed. Third edition, according to Tolkien Nor Am, writer of the book of demonic lore called the Black Scrolls, all life in the universe derives from the chaos of the Abyss. Thus, the Abyss itself is alive, and its reason for existing, and the motivation of all creatures spawned from it, is the return to chaos. The end of all things mortal and immortal, and a universe that could, once again, live wholly without order or purpose. Fourth edition says, the Abyss is a swirling vortex of destruction, dragging everything down toward its heart. It works to destroy its inhabitants with a passion and tenacity that might best be described as sentient. Fifth edition says, the Abyss embodies all that is perverse, gruesome, and chaotic. Its virtually endless layers spiral downward into even more appalling forms. Each layer reflects the entropic nature of the Abyss. Much of what one sees or touches on the plane seems to be in a decaying, crumbling, or corroded state. Geography. First edition says that 666 is the most commonly stated number of layers, but it could very well be infinite. The only layer of the Abyss that is well known is the first one, which is called the Plane of Infinite Portals, Pazunia, or the Palace of 1001 Closets. It is a barren, dusty place without life or greenery, baking beneath a hell-red sun. It has huge holes in the earth, great iron portals, and the river Styx running through it. The holes are conduits to various layers of the Abyss, and the iron fortresses house demon lords when they are astral projecting. Each layer is infinite in size and has its own unique theme and hazards to it. In addition to a sentence or two for each demon prince's realm, we also get a table for determining the type of layer you end up on if you get sent to one randomly, such as through a curse, an item, or choosing the wrong conduit. One of these, which has a 5% chance, is a layer of evil incarnate. Good aligned creatures must save versus spell or instantly die. If they succeed, or if you're neutral aligned, you are flung into another layer. If you are evil aligned, then you are transformed into a Bodak with no saving throw. First edition was very unforgiving. In second edition, some say there are 666 layers, the Fraternity of Order says there's 679 layers, and others say the plane is infinite. Each layer is assigned a number. For example, Demogorgon's layer, the Gaping Maw, is the 88th layer of the Abyss. Now, these numbers are not devised by the demons, and they have nothing to do with any sort of spatial relationship to each other. It's not like other planes where in order to get to the third layer, you first must travel to the second layer and then go down into the third, and to get to the second, you must travel to the first, etc. No. The Abyss is not a neatly mapped out pit of descending layers. Getting from one layer to another is pure chaos. Paths lead from one layer to another without order or pattern, and these often just involve fording a river, descending a cliff, or passing through an archway. The numbers are purely the order that they were discovered in by the Fraternity of Order and Sigil. That's why they believe that there are 679 layers, because that's how many they have recorded. However, it could easily be that one layer was recorded, and then was consumed later and became part of another layer by the time a new layer was being recorded. So they might have 679 layers recorded, but at any given time, there was only 666. That's not canon, that's just a guess I'm throwing out there. However, it seems very unlikely that the chaotic plane would keep a consistent number. In reality, no one really knows. In 3rd edition, it basically has the same lore as 2nd edition. There's said to be 666 layers, the numbers are just the order that they were discovered in. It's described as an infinity of clutching horror. 4th edition, pretty similar once again. 5th edition is a little different. So it says that the concept of layers of the Abyss is one given by mortals to help define it. The Abyss is a chaotic tangle of miniature worlds, each one shaped by the demon lord that claims primacy over it, so basically the same as the previous. However, no mention is made of the first layer, Pazunia. I find this very strange because not only does every other edition mention it, but it also seems to be one of the most important layers. It is the only consistent way of getting to the other layers with all of its portals it has. It's also the first layer, so it is the only consistent layer. What I mean by that is, whenever you enter an outer plane, either from the astral plane, a plane shift spell, by walking through a portal in its gate town, or by taking the river Styx, you always end up in the plane's first layer, with the exception of using a portal in Sigil, but Sigil's an outlier. In the case of the Abyss, you always end up in Pazunia, the first layer, but 5th edition makes no mention of it. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes does mention that the Abyss is filled with portals that connect various locations. It explains that these portals are unreliable and wink in and out of existence. The location they take you to is also random, although rituals exist to attune a portal to a specific domain. It also has this line, quote, "Those who would navigate the Abyss always enter the place in a random location. From there, they must locate a portal and then perform the ritual that enables them to find a specific destination. Escaping the Abyss likewise requires knowledge of the specific ritual needed to do so. Without it, visitors are trapped unless they have access to magic that permits travel between planes." End quote. So this seems to imply that Pazunia is no longer around, and when arriving in the Abyss, unlike every other outer plane, you do not arrive at the first layer, but instead a random layer. Now, I think this is neat because it fits the theme of the plane being chaotic, but Pazunia and Pazuzu are really neat lore-wise, so it's kind of sad to not see him mentioned once. Cosmology. So in 1st, 2nd, and 5th edition, they use the Great Wheel cosmology, where the Abyss is the chaotic evil plane, and it is between Pandemonium, the chaotic evil, chaotic neutral plane, and then Carcery, the chaotic evil, neutral evil plane. In 3rd edition, it uses the Great Wheel sometimes, but for Forgotten Realms at least, it uses the World Tree cosmology, and there it's just part of the fiendish plane side. And then 4th edition, Asmodeus slew Azuth, the god of wizards, and gained his divine power, and then he used his god status to fling the Abyss into the elemental chaos in an attempt to end the Blood War. Under this cosmology, the World Axis cosmology, the Abyss is inside the elemental chaos. Now, because he threw it into the elemental chaos, this implies that it wasn't in it before, but also in 4th edition, the Abyss was formed in the elemental chaos, so I'm not exactly sure how it went from the elemental chaos to the outer planes and then back into the elemental chaos, but I didn't really look that far into it. Properties. Now, the Abyss, being a chaotic plane, will have a multitude of unique properties and hazards that differ between each layer. This section will cover the general properties that apply to the entire plane. 1st edition. Non-demon creatures that serve as minions in the Abyss, such as dinosaurs in Yinogu's realm or undead in Orcus's realm, are stronger than their prime material counterparts. As you can see from this, their armor class gets better, they get a bonus to hit, and can have a chance at casting spells. 2nd edition, and this is where things get a little longer and more complicated, it says that mages are known for enslaving fiends, and since tanar'ri hate service, they blame all spellcasters and love hunting them down like dogs. Thus, Casting spells attracts the unwanted attention of the lord who rules the layer you're on. Magic that only affects the caster and their friends is rarely met with retaliation. Magic that affects but doesn't harm tanar'ri or harm their servants will be met with a minor response, such as a headache or discomforting rash that slows down reactions in combat or spellcasting. Spells that directly affect lesser tanar'ri may bring on a disease or a haunting, such as leprosy or a plague of manes. Spells attacking greater or true tanar'ri are quite likely to draw the lord's attention, but these tanar'ri may be out of favor with their lord, so even then, no response is guaranteed. When a response does come, it varies, from a troop of Armanites or Vrock pouring through an open gate, to an implosion of scalding fire, to rusting or corrupting a magical item. Of course, if you're on an open layer, which is a layer that is not ruled by one singular lord, then almost nothing will bother the lords here. However, even attacking a true tanar'ri might still elicit a reaction. Alteration spells have a tendency to fail given the corrupting nature of the abyss. Spellcasters casting an alteration spell must make a save versus spell. On a failure, the result is warped. Conjuration magic, you never really know what will answer the call. The chance of a tanar'ri being summoned is equal to the level of the summoning spell times 10%. More powerful spells are more likely to attract unwanted attention. Divination magic works, but abyssal lords and true tanar'ri are always immediately aware that they are under scrutiny when on their home plane. They can then use the power of the plane to magically reach through the spell's path to attack the caster. This is related to the type of divination and cannot exceed twice the spell's level. For example, Clairaudience, which is a 3rd level spell that lets you listen in on stuff, could be countered with sonic magic, such as a shout spell, which is 6th level. Legend lore provides only false information. Clairvoyance could be met with a color spray and advanced illusion, since they're all visual spells, and advanced illusion and color spray combined is equal to or less than twice the level of clairvoyance. Detect magic can be met with any counterattack, and ESP, which in modern editions is just called Detect Thoughts, drives you to madness as you glimpse the uncountable, incomprehensible horrors that lie in the mind of a demon. Illusion magic tends to work well because demons enjoy deceiving their foes, so illusions operate at one level higher, lasting longer, creating stronger shadow magics, and making the illusions of the tanar'ri themselves more believable. Necromancy works well in the Abyss and is empowered. Animate Dead has a special flaw where petitioners, mains, and other lesser creatures can take over the bodies, usually using their new bodies to attack the caster. Reincarnation in the Abyss is always in the form of a tanar'ri, usually a Dretch or main, and rarely a Rudderkin or lesser tanar'ri. Good aligned souls that die in the Abyss are reborn as Bodaks. Wild magic is enhanced and has a higher probability of causing negative effects. And elemental magic, since the Abyss is cut off from the inner planes, doesn't work. However, spell keys can circumvent this, but even then, protective spells have chances of failure, and damaging spells inflict an additional point of damage. In 3rd edition, lawful and good characters have a -2 to charisma checks, and therefore lawful good characters have -4 to charisma checks. And then in 5th edition, every long rest, a non-evil creature must make a DC 10 charisma saving throw. On a failure, they become corrupted, which there's a table that has different corruptions that can happen. You roll to determine which one. Every long rest, a corrupted creature must make a DC 15 charisma saving throw, and on a success, the corruption ends. If a corrupted creature doesn't leave the plane in 1d4 plus 2 days, they become chaotic evil. A dispel evil and good spell reverts them to their original alignment. Now, before I end this video, I would just like to point out one other just kind of random bit of information that is talked about both in 2nd and 3rd edition, and that is the Ships of Chaos. So, 2nd edition explains that these are engines of war powered by necromancy and hundreds of larvae, and that they are constructed by the Doom Guard on the 12th layer, 12 trees. 3rd edition gets a little bit more detail into them. It specifically states that there are only 6 of them, and that they are titanic magical vessels capable of bringing huge numbers of passengers across the plains. Each ship has unique magical characteristics, but all are composed of stitched flesh, powdered bones, crushed spirits, and living larvae, making them horrors to behold. The engines are powered by mortal souls, and they spew a guttering contrail of withered larvae as they sail across the skies of the abyss. They are piloted by a bound demon spirit with a dull sentience that allows it to perceive the environment, but a mortal or demonic captain is required for complex or particularly creative maneuvers. In order to travel to another plane or layer, it literally erases itself and everything on board, rebuilding it on the destination plane. Enduring this entropic magical transference requires a successful DC 19 will save. Those who fail are affected as if by the insanity spell, their minds utterly shattered by the horrifying experience. That is the lore on the Abyss throughout all 5 editions of D&D. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe to my channel to see more D&D related content.